The San Francisco Giants have hired Tony Vitello as the new manager of the baseball team. What are my thoughts on that, and how do I interpret that going into 2026? Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Soder Report. My name is Kyle Soder. Special edition of the Soder Report, we've got a special guest on today. Got my supervisor here. I'm on dad duty right now. We've got breaking news. We've got important news, and I wanted to get my thoughts out there on the Tony Vitello situation before it gets stale and before everyone moves on, because I've done a lot of digging and I think I have some information that is worthwhile for fans to know, and I'd like to throw it out there and give my interpretation of it, and I would love to hear everyone else's interpretation of it as well. So please, after I state all this stuff, please let me know what you think in the comments below. Also, our channel is reaching a lot more people now. This is our first week where we have had over 1,000 views. So please, 99% of you aren't subscribed. Please do me a huge favor. Click that subscribe button below. It would help me and my family out so much. Thank you very much. So, without further ado, let's get into the big news of the day. That's the San Francisco Giants hiring Tony Vitello to be the new manager, replacing Bob Melvin. So, I'd like to start off by talking a little bit about Bob Melvin and where I think it went wrong. After which, I want to talk about exactly what the Giants needed at manager and what they were looking for throughout their managerial search. And then I want to talk a little bit about Tony Vitello, his background, and how he specifically fits into his managerial search. He specifically fits into the San Francisco Giants managerial search, rather. So, I'm going to get to all that, but first let's talk about Bob Melvin and where exactly it went wrong. So, Bob Melvin, he was a very safe hire. He was a guy that Farhan Zaidi hired, so it was not Buster Posey's guy. And it was a guy that was simply supposed to be there to stabilize the ship and save Farhan Zaidi's job. He was looked at as a very experienced manager, and even though things weren't going well over in San Diego at the time, he was looked at as a guy who could stabilize an organization such as the San Francisco Giants. That did not happen. He came here in year one. He looked okay. Farhan Zaidi took the fall for what happened in year one. Year two, it was pretty obvious in the month of August that the team was unmotivated and they needed a different voice in the locker room. That's my opinion. And then throughout the year, I thought that he had some questionable decision making on some of the pitching decisions, whether it was leaving Justin Verlander in a game too long, putting Ryan Walker in a save situation. One situation I remember specifically was Bob Melvin in the second Logan Webb versus Hunter Green matchup way back in May, I believe. Camilo Duvall was pitching awful. Logan Webb had gone 7 shutout innings. Hunter Green at the time had gone 7 shutout innings. Bob Melvin decides to put in Camilo Duvall. And every single person in the stadium, it felt like, knew that Camilo Duvall was going to lose that game. And he allowed 3 runs in the 8th inning. And the Giants lost that game 3-0. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about when I talk about questionable pitching decisions Bob Melvin made. There are a lot more examples that I'm just not going to go over because there are more important things to talk about. But those pitching decisions and the lack of motivation that the team had in the month of August, playing their worst stretch of baseball since before World War I. I believe it was their worst stretch since 1901. That led to Bob Melvin getting fired. It wasn't necessarily that he didn't make the playoffs, because I think that what I've been saying on this podcast for the past year is that the San Francisco Giants shouldn't expect to make the playoffs in 2025. They didn't. The way it happened, though, being in first place and then getting Rafael Devers through trade and then all of a sudden imploding, that's a really bad look. That's a really bad look for a manager. So I believe that's what led to his firing. And I believe going into this new managerial search, they were looking for a lot of different things at manager, but I want to talk about 3 things specifically. First of all, they wanted a new manager. They didn't want a retread, which I agreed with. They were looking at guys like Nick Hundley and Kurt Suzuki and Tony Vitello. And it seemed like the troubling thing to me about this managerial search is out of Schumacher, Suzuki, Hundley, and Vitello, it felt to me personally like Vitello was the Giants' 4th option. And it felt like we've got reports that Hundley pulled his name out of the hat. Schumacher obviously took the job at Texas. And then Kurt Suzuki, he just took another job. Which job was that Kurt Suzuki took? He just went to the Angels. So obviously the Angels situation isn't better than the Giants. Probably a lot of that has to do with the fact that he was a player there. But it seemed to me like the San Francisco Giants have not made themselves a destination where managers want to come to. And I believe a lot of that has to do with the lack of stability that the Giants have shown at the manager position. They had Bruce Bochy for a long time, and then the past couple of years, there's been a lot of instability. They went through Gabe Kapler. He was fired in 2023. Farhan Zaidi gets the call, Farhan Zaidi hires Bob Melvin. He's out in 2024. Buster Posey comes in, says he's committed to Bob Melvin, picks up his contract for 26, and then he's out in 2025. So it seems like the Giants have created an image where managers feel like if they take the San Francisco Giants manager position, they won't have a lot of stability in their job. So that could be a big part of why they weren't able to get Nick Hundley or Skip Schumacher or Kurt Suzuki. So the Giants, they need a guy that is going to be here for a couple of years. They need a guy who's going to bring stability back to the organization, and hopefully Vitello and Posey can do that together. But they went high risk, high reward here. First time manager, never even managed at the professional level before. It's the first time it's ever been done. No one has ever gone straight from college to the major leagues without having any major league experience first. So they were looking for a guy with high upside, and that's what I believe Vitello provides, is high upside, high risk. The second thing that they were looking for was they needed someone who could manage the pitching better than Bob Melvin could. I cited the issues with Bob Melvin's managing last year. He was not very good in those moments during the game. It didn't feel like he had a real feel for what his bullpen was going through, for what his starting pitchers were feeling. It just seemed like he was out of sync with his rotation and with his bullpen. And it might be a little bit unfair because what we have in mind as San Francisco Giants fans is Bruce Bochy, and that's never going to happen again, probably. We're probably never going to get a manager who was as good as managing the bullpen and his starting rotation as Bruce Bochy was. So there's that. And then last of all, I joked around during the season that the San Francisco Giants needed Happy Gilmore to be the manager, especially during that horrendous stretch where they just looked dead and unmotivated. I think they might have gotten the baseball equivalent of Happy Gilmore. And I based that off of just a few clips that I've seen of Tony Vitello. I'm not a college baseball fan. I haven't paid attention to Tennessee baseball over the past few years. But they needed a guy that was fiery. They needed a guy who could motivate his players and get them ready to go out and play every day for 162 games. And Tony Vitello seems like he can do that. He's a fiery guy. He's beloved by his players, and he's beloved by his fans. They love him. So let's talk a little more in depth about Tony and about the Tennessee program. But first, before I get into that, I want to talk a little bit more about sorry, I completely lost my train of thought. Got my supervisor here. He's getting a little squirmy. So let's talk a little more about Tony. He's a fiery guy. Everyone loves him. Just go on Twitter and you'll see how upset Tennessee fans are that Tony Vitello is not with the University of Tennessee anymore. So Tony Vitello, he took over the Tennessee Vols baseball program in 2017. Now, I have their rankings from 2015 and 2016. In 2015, Tennessee's baseball program ranked 73rd in the nation. And in 2016, they ranked 88th in the nation. So this was a mediocre program before Tony Vitello got in there. And he came in, and here are his last 2 seasons. Here are the results of his last 2 seasons. In 2015, they went into the College World Series bracket as the 14th seed, and they finished ranked number 12 in the nation. And then in 2024, they won the College Baseball World Series. Here are his recruiting classes from 2025, 2024, and 2023. In 2023, Tony Vitello brought in the number 6 recruiting class according to 24/7 Sports. In 2024, he brought in the number 1 recruiting class according to 24/7 Sports. And in 2025, he brought in the number 1 recruiting class according to 24/7 Sports. So, what does that mean when you're talking about a guy who is in line to be a manager at the MLB level? Recruiting, at least in football, in college football. I talk a lot about college football. For those of you who don't know, I cover the Oregon Ducks. But in college football, a lot of the recruiting is on your staff. You hire people on your staff specifically to recruit people. And these recruits will come and they'll meet the head coach, but the head coach won't be solely responsible for recruiting all of this talent. The head coach will be responsible for developing these players and putting the best product on the field, scheming, game planning to give their players, to put their players in the best spot to win games. So the head coach isn't super involved with, I don't want to say that. The head coach is not the first person. His assistants are doing the heavy lifting, is what I'm trying to say. So, what this means, Tony Vitello took a program that was middle of the pack in college baseball and turned them into national champions in 6 years. And he's put together a staff that can recruit at the highest clip in the nation. Obviously, the number 1 recruiting classes, that's a high accomplishment for a team that was mediocre 7-8 years ago. So what that means is he can put together a staff who can sell the image of a program that they're trying to build. That's what that means. So that might come in handy when you're trying to get players out of Japan to come to the San Francisco Giants, because he has experience doing that. That's pretty similar to what he was doing at Tennessee. The international market right now, it's just recruiting. It's the same thing. The other thing it means is he can take a mediocre program and make the players believe that they can be championship contenders. The San Francisco Giants, we've all seen the stats. They've been the definition of mediocrity over the past decade. There was a tweet just a couple months ago saying that in the last 2 games, the Giants were 1-1. In the last 4 games, the Giants were 2-2. In the last 10 games, they were 5-5. In the last 50 games, they were 25-25. And in the last 1,000 games, they were 500 and 500. They've just been perfectly mediocre. Shh. Shh. So, Tony Vitello coming into a team like the Giants, he did it at the college level. He's shown that he can take mediocrity and instill a confidence and implement a championship mentality. The other question that we needed to answer, though, was can he manage a pitching staff and bullpen at the major league level? And we won't know. The answer to that is probably no. Because he's never done it before. The college baseball season is a lot shorter than the major league season. I mean, the College World Series was played in the summer, and Major League Baseball is still happening. So that's something we're going to have to wait and see on, is can Tony Vitello, how well can he adjust to the major league level? And we're just going to have to wait and see. So, in conclusion, I think that Tony Vitello is the right hire for the attitude of this team. I think he's the perfect guy I shouldn't say the perfect guy. I think he's a good candidate to lead a team out of mediocrity and instill a championship mentality in a group of guys. And I think he can recruit very well, which could come in handy for the international signings that the Giants will be making. I do not know if he can earn the trust of people getting paid 10, 15 times as much as he's getting paid. I don't know if he can manage a pitching staff and a bullpen over a 162 game stretch. And I don't know if he can develop players at the major league level. Also, this is something else we should talk about, is the Giants have drafted a lot of players from the University of Tennessee over the past few years. Drew Gilbert, Gavin Keelan, I know there's some others. I can't think of them off the top of my head. Will he play favoritism? Because Drew Gilbert, quite frankly, I know he's fun. I know he brought an energy onto the team last year. He's not ready to be... He should keep developing at AAA. He's not ready to be a major league player for a 162 game season. So that's what I think about the Tony Vitello hire. Sorry if there was some distractions. Sorry. I lost my train of thought there for a second, but hopefully I was able to get my points across. But just to close out the show, it's going to be a little bit of a shorter one today. I want to make sure that we restate our expectations for the 2026 season. I'm really excited for the season to get underway next year because I think that the talent on the San Francisco Giants roster should be good enough to get to the playoffs. They should take another step forward next year. And if they don't get to the playoffs, then we're going to have to take a look at Tony Vitello. We're going to have to take a look at the coaching staff. We're going to have to take a look at the farm system, the coaches in the farm system. But most of all, we're going to have to take a look at Buster Posey. And I know that's going to be weird because he's an icon in the San Francisco Giants organization. He's probably going to end up in the Hall of Fame one day. But he's an icon as a catcher. He's going to end up in the Hall of Fame as a catcher. And being a president of baseball operations is a different job. Just because he's a good catcher doesn't mean he's a good president of baseball operations. And I love what he's doing so far. He has gotten this team, he's made it exciting. I mean, he's taking big swings. Tony Vitello is no Bob Melvin. It's not a retread of a guy that you know is safe. He's a big swing, and you look like a genius if it works, and you look like an idiot if it doesn't. Rafael Devers, Farhan Zaidi never would have taken that swing, and it's why he failed. Maybe the deal doesn't work out. Maybe the Chapman contract doesn't work out. Maybe the Adames contract doesn't work out, but he's taking big swings. And that's what the Giants need. So, 2026, expect this team in the playoffs. If they are not in the playoffs, then we need to take a look at what went wrong. Because rolling out a lineup with, I'm presuming, a free agent right fielder as a leadoff guy, followed by Ramos, Devers, Adames, Chapman, Eldridge, then Chapman. If that's your 1 through 6, and then at the bottom of your order, you've got Casey Schmidt, Jung-Hoo Lee, and Patrick Bailey, then that's a team that should make the playoffs. And if they don't, questions need to be answered. So, that's all I've got for you. Please like and subscribe. Let me know what you think of the Tony Vitello hire. What does it mean that he was able to recruit so well? What does it mean that he was able to take a mediocre program and get them to the top of the mountain in 6 years? What does it mean that he has never had any experience at the major league level? What does all that mean? What's your guys' opinion on Tony Vitello? I want to learn from you, because I have all this stuff. I don't watch a lot of college baseball, though. So please drop your opinions in the comments. Please subscribe. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.